Sometimes the hardest goodbyes aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that arrive quietly, hidden inside the laughter of someone we once called our best friend. Emily had always believed that friendship was forever. In the small town of Maplewood, where coffee shops doubled as confession booths and neighbors waved from their porches, Emily's world felt safe, familiar, predictable, and in the center of it all was Lena, her best friend since high school. They shared everything, secrets, dreams, and even the same birthday month. If Emily was the calm after a storm, Lena was the lightning that made the sky feel alive. Their friendship wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Until the day everything changed. Emily still remembers that morning. The air smelled like rain and cinnamon, the kind of day that usually made her feel grateful. She had just landed a big interior design project, her dream finally taking shape after years of small gigs. And who was the first person she called? Lena. "You did it, Em. I knew you would." Lena's voice buzzed with excitement, or at least that's what Emily thought. They made plans for dinner to celebrate. Emily even picked out a small gift, a silver bracelet engraved with "Always Us." She had no idea that by the end of that night, the words would feel like a cruel joke. Maplewood was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's story, or thought they did. Emily's studio sat on Main Street, across from the old bakery that still smelled like childhood. Business was growing, her confidence blooming, but success has a strange way of revealing who truly stands beside you. Lena began changing in small, almost invisible ways. She started canceling plans. She'd talk less about Emily's designs and more about her own new opportunities. At first, Emily brushed it off. Maybe Lena was just busy. But deep down, she felt it. That quiet distance that starts between friends long before either admits it's there. 2 weeks later, during a client meeting, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from a mutual friend. "Hey, did you know Lena's pitching your design ideas to the Kingsley project?" Her heart stopped. That was Emily's dream client. The one she'd spent months preparing for. She refused to believe it. Not Lena. Not her sister in all but blood. But the next morning, proof arrived like a storm. Photos, screenshots, Lena standing beside the Kingsley team, showing mock-ups nearly identical to Emily's proposal. Emily's hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages. The room seemed to shrink. It wasn't just about the stolen designs. It was the betrayal of trust, the breaking of something sacred. In small towns, betrayal spreads faster than wildfire. By sunset, whispers turned into questions. Clients stopped calling, and Lena didn't even apologize. Instead, she said something Emily would never forget. "You were holding me back, Em. I just took what you weren't ready to use." That line replayed in Emily's head for nights. How easily friendship can twist into competition, and love into jealousy. Days passed. The world outside continued. Cars rolled by, kids laughed after school, but Emily's world stood still. She stopped visiting her studio. Her phone stayed silent, except for the messages she never answered. Grief isn't only for people who die. Sometimes it's for the living who chose to leave. She'd look at the silver bracelet on her desk. Always us. And wonder how always could disappear so fast. But deep inside that silence, a small voice began to whisper something new, something she didn't understand yet. Maybe losing Lena wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of finding herself. Emily didn't know it yet, but this was the first crack in the shell she had built around her worth. And when life breaks you open like that, it's usually preparing you for something far greater. Before everything fell apart, Emily and Lena's friendship looked perfect, the kind of bond people envied. They met in sophomore year, two girls from different worlds drawn together by laughter and shared dreams. Emily was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who found comfort in sketching alone by the window. Lena was fire, loud, bold, magnetic. When she walked into a room, conversations bent toward her like iron to a magnet. Together, they made sense. Lena gave Emily courage. Emily gave Lena calm. And for a long time, it worked. Their friendship began the day Emily dropped her sketchbook in the school hallway. Papers scattered everywhere, charcoal portraits, color swatches, her private world exposed. Lena bent down, handed her the last page, and smiled. "You drew this?" "Yeah," Emily said shyly. "Then you're coming over after school. I need you to teach me how to draw that." That small moment turned into years of shared secrets, sleepovers, road trips, matching necklaces, and promises whispered under starry skies. By the time they graduated, everyone in Maplewood knew them as Emily and Lena, inseparable, unstoppable, unbreakable, or so they thought. After college, both returned to Maplewood. Emily opened a small design studio, starting small, dreaming big. Lena, always chasing excitement, tried everything: photography, event planning, even selling handmade candles. But nothing stuck. Emily's business began to grow quietly, one client at a time. She didn't brag, didn't post about it, but word spread. People trusted her taste, her calm professionalism. And though Emily celebrated her success with humility, something inside Lena began to shift. Jealousy doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, disguising itself as jokes, subtle comments, or distant smiles. "You're so lucky, Em. Things just fall into place for you," Lena said one night. "Lucky?" Emily laughed. "I work 70 hours a week." "Yeah, but still. People just like you." It sounded harmless, but something in Lena's tone made Emily's chest tighten. Over time, the cracks grew deeper. Emily noticed how Lena began comparing everything: their clothes, their homes, their relationships. Even small compliments turned into competitions. When Emily designed a local cafe, Lena suddenly took up consulting for interiors. When Emily bought a new car, Lena bought one bigger. Emily tried to ignore it. She loved her friend truly, but love can make us blind to warning signs that were always there. Looking back, Emily would one day realize Lena didn't betray her suddenly. The betrayal began long before that. It began with envy, disguised as admiration. It began when one friend wanted to be the other. There was one night, a moment Emily never forgot. Her studio had just finished its biggest project, redesigning the Maplewood Library. At the opening gala, Lena raised a glass in front of everyone and said, "To Emily, the perfectionist who somehow makes the rest of us look lazy." Everyone laughed. Emily smiled politely. But behind that laughter, she saw it. That flicker in Lena's eyes. A bitterness she couldn't unsee. That night, Emily cried without understanding why. It wasn't because of the words, it was the tone. It felt like the beginning of goodbye. They say betrayal only hurts when it comes from someone you trust. And that's why it felt like drowning in slow motion. Emily remembered the road trips, the late-night talks, the promises. How could Lena, her sister, her shadow, her best friend, take everything they built and turn it into this? But the truth is, people change. Sometimes when you outgrow your fears, you outgrow the people who thrive on them. Emily didn't know it yet, but letting go of Lena would teach her more about love, strength, and peace than any friendship ever could. The story of Emily and Lena wasn't just about betrayal. It was about awakening, the painful kind that comes before healing, because before Emily could truly move on, she would have to face the storm head-on. And that storm was about to arrive. There's a certain kind of silence that follows betrayal. It's not empty and it's heavy. It presses against your chest, makes it hard to breathe. That's what Emily felt when she saw the photos. There was Lena, smiling proudly beside the Kingsley team, a client Emily had spent months preparing for. Her designs, her color palette, even the presentation layout, all copied piece by piece. For a moment, Emily thought there must be some mistake. Maybe Lena had collaborated. Maybe it was all just a misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew. The truth doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's written in the silence between them. That evening, Emily sent a message. Short, careful, trembling. "Lena, can we talk?" Minutes turned into hours, then hours into a night without sleep. Finally, around 2 a.m., a single message appeared. "There's nothing to talk about." You're not the only one with ideas." Emily stared at the screen until her tears blurred the words. It wasn't just the betrayal of her work. It was the cruelty of how cold it sounded. Like years of friendship had been erased with one text. The next morning, Emily did something she never imagined she would. She went to see Lena. Lena was sitting outside the cafe, the one they used to visit every Friday. Her hair perfectly styled, her smile practiced. When she saw Emily, her expression didn't even flinch. "So this is how it ends?" Emily asked quietly. "Ends?" Lena smirked. "It's just business. You stole my designs, Lena. You stole my work." "I improved it," Lena interrupted. "You're too safe, Em, too slow. You could have pitched to Kingsley months ago, but you didn't." "So I did." Emily's voice cracked. "You could have told me. And what? You'd have stopped me? I'm tired of being in your shadow." The words cut deeper than she expected, because Emily realized all those years Lena never stood beside her. She had been standing behind her, waiting for the chance to step ahead. After that day, everything changed. The studio felt different, colder, quieter. Clients started pulling out. Some had heard rumors that Emily had copied Lena's work, not the other way around. Lena had been faster, louder, better at playing innocent. And in a town like Maplewood, reputation was everything. Emily's heart broke twice, once for her lost work, and again for the friend she thought she knew. There's a strange loneliness in realizing someone you love never really saw you. They saw what you could do for them. Emily spent nights replaying every conversation, every laugh, every "I'll always be there for you." It all felt tainted now, like every memory was rewritten with a darker truth. Weeks passed. One afternoon, Emily stood in her empty studio, sunlight falling through the blinds in thin golden lines. Dust floated in the air, soft, aimless, lost. That's how she felt too. She looked around at the sketches, the half-finished projects, the life she had built. And then she picked up the silver bracelet. "Always us." With a shaky breath, she whispered, "Maybe it was never us at all." Her voice cracked. And for the first time in her life, Emily didn't try to hold back the tears. She let them come, unfiltered, unstoppable, because sometimes the only way to heal is to finally stop pretending you're okay. Days turned into weeks. Emily stopped going out. She'd walk to the mailbox, water her plants, and stare at the sketches she couldn't bring herself to finish. But somewhere inside that quiet, something began to change. The pain didn't disappear, but it softened, like a wound that no longer bleeds, only aches. And in that ache, Emily began to see something she hadn't seen before, herself, not as a victim, not as someone broken, but as someone becoming. Sometimes losing what you thought was everything gives you the space to find what truly matters. Emily didn't know it yet, but this loss, this heartbreak, would lead her to a peace she had never known. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone's loyalty. The kind that lives quietly within you. Silence. It used to scare Emily, but now it was the only thing that felt honest. No more phone calls. No more constant texts from Lena. No more smiling for people who only wanted gossip. The world had gone quiet. And in that stillness, Emily finally heard herself. In the weeks after the confrontation, life moved on without her. The bakery still opened every morning. Kids still ran past her porch after school. But for Emily, each day felt like a repeat of the same long sigh. She'd wake up, make coffee she rarely finished, and stare at her design table, pencils scattered, ideas half-formed. Work used to be her escape. Now it was her reminder. Every sketch felt like a ghost of what used to be. Every color palette reminded her of the friend who turned those same colors into a weapon. "Maybe I'm not meant to create anymore," she whispered one night. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Pain doesn't take away your talent. It only hides it until you're strong enough to see it again. One afternoon, there was a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Green, her old art teacher from high school. Her smile was gentle, the kind that carried warmth without pity. She held a basket of muffins. "Haven't seen you at the studio, Emily," she said softly. "You know, sometimes losing people gives us space to meet ourselves again." Emily's eyes welled up. Mrs. Green didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. She just sat there, 2 cups of tea between them, one untouched, one cooling slowly. That afternoon, Emily didn't talk much. She just listened, not to words, but to presence. Sometimes that's all healing needs, quiet company that doesn't demand explanation. The next morning, something felt different. The air was cool, the sky pale pink, the kind of sunrise that feels like a promise. Emily pulled out her old sketchbook, the same one she hadn't opened in months. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages, past unfinished sketches, past pain, and then she drew. Not for clients. Not for approval. Not for the world. Just for herself. Simple lines. Gentle strokes. A window with light pouring in. She didn't even realize she was crying until a tear fell onto the page. It wasn't sadness this time. It was release. That's the thing about healing. It never looks dramatic. It starts quietly, one breath at a time. One morning you realize you haven't cried in days. One afternoon you find yourself humming again. And just like that, life starts sneaking back in. A few days later, Emily sat by her desk and wrote a letter. Not to anyone else, but to Lena. "You hurt me more than I can ever explain. But I don't hate you. I'm done carrying that. I'm letting you go. Not because you deserve peace, but because I do." She didn't mail it. She didn't even fold it neatly. She just placed it in the drawer, under the silver bracelet that once meant forever. That moment, quiet and unannounced, was the start of Emily's freedom. Over the next few weeks, small shifts began to happen. She took long walks. She reopened her studio, even if just for a few hours each day. She started smiling at familiar faces again. Not because she was healed, but because she was learning how to live with the cracks. One morning, a local florist named Hannah stopped by. "I heard you're back," she said. "I'm opening a new shop. I'd love your help designing the space." Emily hesitated. Fear flickered, the memory of betrayal still fresh. But then she smiled. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'd love to." And with that, she took her first real step forward. Healing isn't a straight road. Some days Emily still missed what she lost. Some nights she still replayed old memories. But now she knew something she hadn't before. She could survive without them. And in surviving, she found strength she never knew she had. I remember the morning when everything inside me finally went quiet. It wasn't peace yet, not fully, but it was the beginning of it. After months of running from pain, from questions, from people who whispered about me and Ava, I stopped. I stopped trying to prove that I was okay. I stopped replaying the betrayal in my mind like a movie stuck on repeat. I just sat still. That morning, the sky was a dull gray, and I made myself a cup of coffee, just like I used to before life fell apart. I looked out my window and saw the old oak tree in front of my house, the one Ava and I used to sit under during summer breaks. For the first time, I didn't feel the sharp sting of memory. Instead, I whispered to myself, maybe it's okay that she's gone. And those words, those simple, fragile words, felt like a door creaking open inside my chest. Later that week, I went to the bookstore where Ava and I first met in high school. I hadn't stepped inside since she left town. The same old woman still worked there, and when she saw me, she smiled and said, "Emily, it's been years. You look lighter." That word echoed in my mind, because maybe that's what letting go really means, not pretending it never happened, not pretending you don't care, but finally being free from the weight of what broke you. I walked to the back of the store and ran my fingers across the shelves, just like I used to. There was a book about forgiveness lying on a small display. I picked it up, opened it, and read a line that changed something deep within me. You can't heal in the same place that hurt you. But you can grow roots elsewhere, stronger, deeper, and freer. I closed the book and smiled. Maybe it was time to start new roots. Over the next few months, I began rebuilding, not just my career, but my heart. I started a small art club for kids at the community center. It wasn't big, but it was something that made me feel alive again. Each time a child smiled at their messy painting, I felt a piece of myself return. I realized something else, too. Forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you. It's for you. So one night, I wrote Ava a letter. Not to send, just to release. In it, I wrote, I hope life gives you everything you were searching for. I no longer wish you pain, because I've learned that holding on to hate doesn't punish you. It poisons me. When I finished, I tore the letter into tiny pieces and let them drift away in the wind from my porch. As the pieces flew, I felt years of weight lift from my shoulders, and that's when it happened. The next day, my phone buzzed with an email, an offer from a small magazine in another state. They had seen my work online and wanted me to lead a new art therapy program. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, realizing the universe has a strange sense of timing, because sometimes you only receive what's meant for you after you've made peace with what you lost. That was the day I packed my bags, left that small town, and drove toward a new beginning. The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And as the sun set behind me, I whispered to the universe, and maybe to Ava too. Thank you for breaking me just enough to find myself again. The highway stretched endlessly before me, a silver ribbon under the morning sun. My car was packed with the few things I owned, paintbrushes, canvases, a few worn-out books, and one photo of my parents smiling on the porch. No Ava, no old friends. Just me. It was terrifying, but freeing. I rolled down the window, letting the cool air wash over my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel like the victim of someone's betrayal. I felt alive. That drive, 3 hours of open road and quiet thought, became my transition between who I was and who I was becoming. When I reached the small coastal town of Willow Bay, it felt like stepping into another world, a place where nobody knew my story. Nobody looked at me with pity or whispered my name like a scandal, just waves, laughter, and sunlight. The magazine that hired me, Harbor Lights Journal, was small but full of heart. They wanted to use art to help the community, especially people who had gone through loss, trauma, or heartbreak. It was perfect. My first week there, I met a group of kids at the local community center. Their eyes lit up when I pulled out my brushes. We painted sunsets, oceans, and dreams. One little girl named Sophie, barely 10 years old, told me, "Miss Emily, I paint when I'm sad. It makes the sad go away." I smiled at her because I knew exactly what she meant. Each day, I started to feel stronger, more whole. I wasn't trying to erase the past anymore. I was learning to build something new on top of it. One afternoon, while helping Sophie mix colors, a man walked into the center. He had gentle eyes and carried a box of donated art supplies. "Hi," he said, smiling shyly. "You must be Emily. I'm Daniel, the volunteer coordinator." Daniel. He wasn't the type to fill silence with empty words. He just showed up, helped when I needed, listened when I talked. We became friends, real friends. The kind who ask how your day was and actually want to hear the answer. One evening, after everyone had gone home, we stayed late cleaning brushes. The golden light of sunset spilled through the windows. He looked at me and said, "You know, you seem like someone who's been through a storm, but learned how to dance in the rain." I laughed softly. "Something like that," he smiled. "Then I hope you never stop dancing." That night, I walked home with a feeling I hadn't known in years. Warmth. Not the dizzying kind of love that blinds you, but something gentler, something real. Months passed and my life found a new rhythm. Daniel and I worked together often, building new projects, bringing art into schools. He never asked about Ava, and I never felt the need to talk about her. But one day, as I was preparing an exhibit for the town fair, an email appeared in my inbox, from Ava. For a long time, I just stared at it. My heart raced, not with anger, but with something else. Curiosity, maybe. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." I hesitated, then opened it. She wrote about how she'd made mistakes, how she let jealousy turn into cruelty, how she'd lost her job months after I left, and how she realized that success built on betrayal never lasts. She said, "I saw your art feature online. You look happy, Emily. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I was wrong." I didn't reply right away. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. And that night, I sat by the beach, watching the waves roll in and out. There was no anger left inside me, just gratitude. Because Ava's betrayal broke something in me, but it also made space for something far greater to grow. So I whispered to the ocean, "I forgive you, Ava, not for you, but for me." And as the tide came in, it felt like life itself was washing away the last traces of my pain. The next morning, I finally replied, "Thank you for reaching out. I wish you healing and peace. I've found mine." Then I smiled, because it was true. Weeks later, Daniel and I hosted the town's first art festival. Families came, kids laughed, and for the first time in years, I felt surrounded by joy I didn't have to earn or fight for. When I stepped on stage to thank everyone, I looked out at the crowd and said, "Sometimes life takes things away to make room for what's meant for you." I lost a friend, but I found myself. I let go, and life gave me back more than I ever imagined. The audience clapped, but what I felt wasn't pride. It was peace. So here's what I've learned. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means choosing freedom over pain. And if you're listening to this, if someone's betrayal has left you broken, please remember this. One day, you'll wake up, take a deep breath, and realize the weight is gone. That's the moment you'll know you finally let go. So here's what I've learned. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means choosing freedom over pain. And if you're listening to this, if someone's betrayal has left you broken, please remember this. One day, you'll wake up, take a deep breath, and realize the weight is gone. That's the moment you'll know you've finally let go.